Happy Hump Day.
Day.
Well, it's not really Hump Day, but happy Hump Day to whoever's listening. And yes, how are you? How have you been? Because you look very tired, I have to say.
Yes. Yes, I've running on fumes, as they say. I've only had a few hours of sleep.
You're
So
just such a
yeah.
party animal. That's what it is.
Yes. I guess so. Oh my gosh. I did have my work Christmas party on Friday.
Oh yeah.
Very early in November. Availability of people and whatnot. So
Mm.
yes, it was fun.
Where
And
did-
I went to Boston's Bay yesterday. So
Oh, nice. Where did you have your Christmas party?
just at one of the doctor's places.
Oh yeah.
Mhm. Yes,
Nice.
it
Fun.
was really fun. There was karaoke and stuff, and people were drunk enough to use it. So
Oh,
it was.
oh, you don't really drink. So you didn't do karaoke?
I did one song,
Oh
but
yeah.
there was a few of us that
Oh, okay.
Jackson beat it.
Safety in
So
numbers kind of thing.
exactly. You didn't have to go up by yourself, so it worked out
Okay.
just.
So what did you
Um,
sing?
Michael Jackson beat it.
Beat it. Just
Very
beat it.
random.
Just
Yes,
beat
it's a
it.
bit exactly. It was very random. One of the other guys chose it, so yeah, it was
That could be funny. I wish there was a fly on the wall to see you singing Beat It by Michael Jackson. Uh,
I'm glad other people had the mic because that
mm.
would have been truly embarrassing. But
Oh,
anyway, how are you?
good. Yeah. I'm coach assisting this weekend, so
Hmm.
I'm busy with that. What have I done since I spoke to you? I don't know. I can't think. My brain. It's like, what have I did? What did I do?
Hmm.
I remember going to Manly. Did I talk about that? I went to Manly for a walk. That was nice.
Oh no.
Yeah, that no,
Oh,
that was last weekend.
hmm.
It's really, really nice. It's going to be a really hot day today.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like
Oh.
really hot. Like I went and got coffee just before
Hmm.
this, and it was 21 degrees already.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yesterday was beautiful. It was actually on the cooler side yesterday.
Mm.
So it worked out. And when you're on the ferry, it's always cold. So
We got the
um,
ferry to Watson's Bay. Did you have fish and chips?
yes, we didn't have fish and chips because we did the walk. And then by the time the walk was finished, I was very cold. And so I was like, can we go into the city and get some ramen? That's what we did. Went into the city and got some ramen. So yes.
Okay. Good
Um,
ramen.
Good ramen. We went to Ichiban.
Oh
So
yeah.
it was very nice ramen.
Oh, nice, 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 nice. Oh, that's good. I guess let's
Yes,
say, have you got a story for me?
yes.
Unfortunately, you do.
Unfortunately, yes. So this is a story from The Guardian, and the title reads, Leaked audio reveals Queensland police staff in racist conversations, joking about violence to Black people and protesters. So, yes, not a pleasant one. To be honest, I would like to be surprised, but I'm not overly. I
Mm.
thought, that it would be better by now, but clearly. Anyway, so it reads audio recordings taken in the Brisbane City Police Watch House reveals officers joking about beating and burying Black people, referring to Nigerians as jigaboos, and raising fears that Australia will be fucking taken over. Sorry, I should have said warnings that it contains offensive language. So
Yeah, it's a big warning. Warning contains offensive language for sure.
yes, exactly, indeed. Uh, a series of tapes leaked to Guardian Australia by a whistleblower record several Queensland police officers using racist slurs and offensive language while working in holding cells. The audio, which they've published now, features comments by several watch house officers who are non-policing roles and sworn police. It includes jokes about one officer's desire to skull drag protesters, discussions of fears of outbreeding by Muslim migrants, and when speaking about African population growth. The comment, let's hope Ebola works. The recordings were submitted to the state's Commission of Inquiry into Police Response to Domestic and Family Violence by Watch House Officer Steve Marshall. And Steve Marshall has given The Guardian consent to publish his name. Has worked at Brisbane Watch House for 4 years and was present during the conversations he recorded. He says some conversations were about people of colour held at the Watch House, including one black detainee being referred to as a gorilla in the mist. Jokes were made by a fellow officer that a female Indigenous trained detainee won't give you a fucking blowjob here. Marshall says he is speaking out after being left deeply disturbed by the racist remarks uttered casually in front of staff and in some cases possibly detainees in his workplace. He says that he's only complained internally about one of these recordings because he had previously complained about unrelated matters and had exhausted all options over the years to hold his colleagues to account in relation to these, including lodging internal whistleblower complaints. He says that he felt repeated complaints through formal channels were never taken seriously and that he had suffered alleged reprisals for speaking up. Marshall told Guardian Australia that he had worked with hundreds of good officers but held serious concerns about the culture of Brisbane City Watch House that allowed some individuals to use violent and racist language. The Queensland Police Service has written a response to The Guardian. The Ethical Standards Command was conducting inquiries into the matter and would immediately review any previous complaints. The QPS values, and this is a quote, culture and diversity, averse language used towards First Nations communities completely unacceptable. The QPS encourages any members who witness or experience inappropriate workplace behaviour to immediately come forward and report the matter internally. QPS has implemented new oversight measures as part of the ongoing review into the local managerial resolution system and is committed to improving response to inappropriate work behaviour. The QPS recognises the current Commission of Inquiry into Domestic and Family Violence as an opportunity to learn from matters raised while strengthening and improving the organisation. So it goes on to actually transcribe the 3 recordings that they have, and it is, we're not going to read it out because it's
really bad.
No point in airing such complaints, but such horrible language and things that just, if you want to read it, then by all means to log on to The Guardian. But there isn't any resolution. The article does say that the police commissioner, Ina Carroll, publicly apologised for those instances and acknowledged an inquiry has been, there were areas of concern in regards to racism and misogyny, but she did not accept that this was widespread cultural issues out of desire to not tar all those people with the same brush. Many of those seeking reform to the QPS, including police officers who've contributed to the inquiry, say that the environment where overt racism or misogyny occurs casually and unchecked, even if perpetrated by a minority, demonstrate a cultural problem. The final report is due on Monday. So, that was the end of it. And I completely agree with that last statement, that even if it's a minority, and it was so outspoken and in front of quite a few people and possibly detainees, people don't have fear of saying these things out in the open because they know nothing will be done. I feel like police commissioners' words are just, it's the same we've all heard all the time. Areas of concern, but I don't believe it's a cultural issue or widespread. So I don't have to deal with it then, So, it's not really a concern. They're just one bunch of people that we don't need to worry about, with power. So it's fine.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. I mean, when I heard it, I was actually shocked.
Mm,
Call me naive, but I was shocked because I felt, I don't know. I know there's, of course, I know there's race people in the world have experienced it. I just thought that the police had come a long way. I mean, only, and I can only speak from my experience here because I don't, I don't really understand. I don't know what it's like in other countries, other than what you hear in the media. I wouldn't, like, for example, I'd be terrified to live in the US.
exactly.
But
Indeed.
yeah, I was really shocked about what the kinds of things they were saying because to me it's like how are those kind of people getting that kind of job
No,
with
absolutely.
those views? And then yeah, and then you mean there's going to be people that have those views and are very good at not revealing
So,
that.
mm,
Um, but to be able to so casually
mm,
talk about
yeah,
people like that
yeah,
openly at work. Can you even just forget it's the police? Because that,
yeah,
that's bad. Just imagine
yeah.
in your workplace, people talking like that.
Yeah, that comment, like it just none of it, like you could do, you really can't do, like I can't imagine a normal conversation, and it's the same old rhetoric. That's why I'm like even more disappointed. It's the same bullshit that we heard, like 30 years ago or 40 years ago, or 80 years ago, or they're going
Mm.
to take over Australia, they're going to like convert it. Like I just, in terms, it's just like seriously, really, like like how pathetic and uneducated would you have to be to hold these views? I don't know.
Well,
It
that's the
just
scary thing. We've got people in positions of power
mm,
uh, with those views. Like, really, what is the?
mm, I know. Yeah.
It's
I must say, I wasn't overly surprised about Queensland because that's one of the places I remember the first time I visited Queensland, and I was quite young when I did. It was one of the places where there was just overt racism. Like,
right.
we had it in schools a lot, kids and all of that, and you sort of, that's generally, but you didn't get it a lot walking down the street
Mm.
generally. No, I never really had that here in Sydney and stuff when, where I grew up. But in Queensland, yes, they shouted it from the cars. That's what
Oh,
I remember.
really?
Yeah, I don't remember.
That's how you remember when that's
Yeah,
your
yeah, when
experience.
I was younger. Yeah, I remember like literally people screaming at us from cars. Like, so it was just I remember thinking, oh, I hate this. And obviously I've been to Queensland since, and it hasn't been that bad. But when I was younger, yes, that's what my first trip was like. So
Yeah.
um
And the other thing, I'm just thinking, right, I don't know why. But so what I mean, yes, I was really actually really disturbed me. Because I'm Nigerian. I'm like part Nigerian as well. But it was kind of like shock and disbelief that people think like that. And also what I'm guessing, because I don't know how old these people are, but I'm guessing they're like
yes.
our age or younger even.
Yeah,
So
no.
that
Well,
disturbs me because it means a
yeah.
generation after us has
Yeah.
carried on these.
Yeah. Well, that's how you really know it's a cultural problem, don't you? Like it's inbred into the system because it's being handed down from officer to officer, I guess.
Mm.
Because they feel so confident in airing these
Comfortable,
views. Comfortable,
comfortable
yes.
with that, casually talking like
Yeah.
that.
And knowing that it will be received without reprisal, basically.
Mm.
You could, to me, you couldn't do that in a normal
In any other
workplace.
workplace, you wouldn't be doing that.
Like you couldn't say half the things they've said in here without somebody going, "What are you talking about?" And just going, So the fact that the police can do it, yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah, that response was a very, yeah, you're right. It's
Mm,
like,
yeah, exactly. That especially, yeah, from the minister, it was just sort of like, oh, it's really, really, oh, it's not
it's only a
good,
couple of
and
people. I doubt it's
it's
only a
only a
couple of
couple of
people
people.
because if it was only a couple of people, they
I
wouldn't
think
dare
that.
say it out like that. so casually.
Yeah. And there are 3 recordings. We're not talking about like a 2-minute conversation between, like genuinely, it's a long conversation and 3
Yeah.
separate recordings.
So
So,
probably conversations that happen at a higher frequency, more regularly.
absolutely. And especially because if they've said it in front of detainees and known that obviously the detainees can't even do anything about it.
Well,
So
you
it's not,
wouldn't. But I
yeah.
mean, it's such a shame because it just diminishes the trust
Yes.
and any kind of respect that you can have. But again, I mean, I do agree not to tar everyone with the same brush,
Mm.
for sure. I totally agree with that concept in any context. But there's a problem that they need to address. I don't know if they need to address their hiring practices for sure. How do they filter that out? Like, I mean, there's already people there. That's a
Yes.
problem. They should not be promoted.
Yeah. No,
I
100%.
don't even think they should keep their jobs personally. There should definitely be consequences. But if it's an inherent cultural attitude, then they need to address it.
Yeah. Because how are they going to help the community if they don't even,
Yeah,
like speak like that about members of their community? Like
yeah,
it just,
exactly.
it would be the same to me
Mm,
if you had a bunch of doctors talking like that. That's how concerning it would be to me.
mm,
Like I would never, you would never I've never spoken to a doctor or who held beliefs like this, but that's how concerning it is because they also have the responsibility to take care of people, everyone who comes to them for help, right?
yeah, yeah. And it's the same with the police. They have a responsibility to take care of everyone in the community. Yeah.
Yeah, so how does one do that if yeah
If there's an
if
prevalent attitude, doesn't matter, even if it's a bloody minority of
yeah
people, how how do they feel comfortable expressing those views so casually in the
mm-hmm.
workplace? That's the big thing, really. No
Yes
matter how disgusting it is. And yeah, so I think I was just really shocked because it scares me. Like
yeah
I take it personally as well. Like for me and other people of color,
yeah
that it
I mean
takes away a sense of safety.
yeah. And I'm just I want like I do people still not realize that Australian, like this is a country that the vast majority are immigrants. Like that's unless you're a First Nations person, an Indigenous person, you're an immigrant. Like
Exactly.
it boggles my mind that it's still
Mm,
a thing.
I
That yeah.
know. And immigrants have brought all different religions. I don't think
Mm,
it's necessarily Catholic. It was probably Protestant.
yeah,
Um, if anything, when when the when the Brits took over, it would have been
yeah,
Anglican or Protestant.
yeah.
So what about this Catholic religion? Is that accept, all these religions that came in and Greek
Mm,
Orthodox and whatever, they've
yeah.
not taken over, just had their own
And
thing.
to be honest, what I find the irony in this whole situation is if anybody had to complain about immigrants, it would be First Nations people, because that is exactly what happened to them. Their country was taken over. They were all there was mass conversions and things like that, like into Christianity or whatever the predominant Catholic Christian religion was, and that's exactly what they experienced. Like
Mm,
it's not what white immigrants have experienced; it's what white immigrants have done to
mm.
First Nations
It's a bit
people.
ironic, isn't it?
It is so
But I guess
ironic.
that's the thing. That's the point, though. That's the deepest fear, even though I don't think it's really about that, actually. I really don't think it's about that. I don't know. I just think it's about what do I think it's really about? I don't know. I guess trying to get into the head of somebody who with those attitudes is probably fruitless.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, imagine it
It's just
comes
a
from a
loss of
place of
trust,
fear.
loss of respect, and it puts other officers, other decent
Hmm.
police in, and to me they need more representation, but like I bet it implies that that news story that there was minority people making those comments as well.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, yeah, I mean, it's terrible views. I mean, minorities obviously can be racist,
mm,
but it can also be a situation where they felt like they had no other choice.
ought to
You know,
join in.
if you're,
I get that, but you have a choice.
yeah,
You have a choice to be complicit.
mm, yeah,
I totally get it. I remember when I was younger, there's a lot of racism because there's a lot of immigrants from Pakistan and India where I grew up. So to hear other people say things
mm,
in my presence, well, at first I feel really uncomfortable because I didn't agree and I didn't want to
mm,
be party to whatever they were saying. So, certainly wouldn't join in, but I might not have said anything.
mm,
I might
yeah,
have just sat with that feeling uncomfortable. And even not doing anything is a choice as well. And of course I
mm,
wish I had, but I didn't have the skills then when I was that age to say that's not okay. What do you mean by that? And how is that funny?
yes,
And things
absolutely.
like that. And you sound really stupid. Often they sound stupid to me anyway, when people say things like that.
Yes.
Uh,
And I think the best, like, I've found, if you ask for clarification repeatedly, it's like, what does that mean? It makes them feel even more like silly and ridiculous. You're like, I don't understand what that means. What do
no.
you
But
have to
there
say?
was something I read and I was just like, this is a thing that's come up. There was like a comment by one of the officers, oh, we have to be embarrassed to be white or something. Like they've been made to feel guilty or whatever for the atrocities and things.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking about that. Why would you choose to feel that way as opposed you could feel that way. You could feel, oh, take it on personally. I'm
Mm.
white, so and I'm being blamed. But why would you? You didn't do those things.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
you can acknowledge that they were done,
Yes.
and you can take actions to show that you would, you know, you're more inclusive and diverse, and you wouldn't have those attitudes, and
Yeah.
you to resolve the harm, to be an ally. You could
Yeah.
take that approach. I don't understand the whole. I don't know where that bit comes from. The whole they must feel
Well,
embarrassed if the thing
yes.
they're making to be felt embarrassed, then they must have that feeling.
Yeah. I did. Yeah, I've never actually asked anyone if they felt that way, or no one has ever. I mean, yeah, and it feels a little odd to me. It's yeah. Mm, it's hard for me to understand that just we can't not talk about what's happened in the past because it makes you feel uncomfortable, and nobody, like, I'm pretty sure every person of color is not actually saying it to you personally and saying you're responsible and it was your ancestors that or something. That's not what we're trying to do. We're actually just saying, please don't repeat the behavior that's happened in the past, and we can't not repeat
I
it if we don't
condone
know.
it and
Yeah,
please
exactly.
acknowledge it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we can't just,
Mm.
you know, bury our heads in the sand and go, oh yeah, no, 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 it was all fine. It was
Yeah.
all rosy.
Yeah.
Everything's fine.
Or you can't even go, oh, that was then and this is now, because now we have problems because of that. Now we have problems that need addressing and issues that need addressing.
Mm.
Yeah, it's really, and then so so what the things they were saying were really overt. There's
No
no,
subtlety.
there's no subtlety or questioning. Was that racist? That's out and out.
Yes, absolutely.
You don't get any more,
Racist
even incite.
misogynist.
Like to me, that's like can be inciting hatred.
Well, yeah, I think wouldn't that fit the definitions of hate speech?
I would say so. It's
So
just, and then I really. kind of respect to the officer that raised it, because that would not have been easy. You know, talking about
No,
what you do in those situations.
yeah.
Um,
And I
because
didn't read that part, but Marshall has suffered from post-traumatic stress, and said that he's put on about 25 kilos from all of that workplace issues, since he's made formal complaints. So it has taken a toll
it will have
on
done.
him.
Because, like, imagine what kind of reprisals he may have faced
Yeah, absolutely.
for that.
So
So
it's a brave thing to do.
very brave, very brave. Yeah, to be named like that.
Yes. And yeah, to actually say you can use my name.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know many people who'd be up for that, including myself. So
Yeah, including myself, because I can imagine there's going to be people that think similar to those officers that will be,
exactly.
yeah,
Absolutely.
making their feelings known. So,
And
yeah,
I'm sure there's a subset of people who may not necessarily police officers that may not obviously agree with the racist comments that were said, but disagree with the fact that you snitch on your own,
yeah, there'll be that.
yeah, so they have an issue not so much with the racism, and probably they find that offensive, but the fact that he actually spoke out.
You have to. How's anything going to change?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
But
to be fair, he didn't. He started with, because we have this saying, about it's about setting boundaries, and a really good example in nature is with horses. So with horses, I did this exercise like horse coaching. It's about standing in your power, showing your boundaries, setting boundaries. If you want to get the horse to move, so the first thing you do is you do this, get the horse to move. Okay, just in the air, just flick,
oh, right,
yeah,
right.
flick your fingers in the air. Doesn't move.
He's facing the horse at this point.
Yeah, you're going up to the horse and you're going, it
Mm.
doesn't move. Okay. All right, it's not moved. That didn't work. Okay. So then the next thing you do is you get really closer, because you're doing this from a kind of semi-distance, a few feet away.
Mm.
And then you get closer and you just gently touch, you know,
Mm.
let's just say that doesn't work. Okay.
Mm.
And then the next thing you do is you push.
Mm. Yeah.
Yep. So this doesn't work. And the next thing you do is you like literally shove the horse out of the way. Bone, you call it bone. So it's like air and it's fair, skin, bone. That's kind of the description of setting
Okay.
boundaries. So this guy's did make complaints, go through the right channels,
Yes.
did all that, and now we're at bone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So
Mm.
it's like, what do you do to change that? That's, what other option did he have? And I mean, his other option was to do nothing.
Yes, exactly. Which I'm sure people have done before him. So
I mean, I'm sure people have done before him. Yeah.
mm.
It's terrible, terrible.
Mm.
But when I first heard it, I was very, very
Disturbed.
disturbed. Yeah, I'm trying to think of the emotions I felt. Really disturbed, shocked, even
Mm.
fearful.
Mm.
It's like, what
Yeah.
is the world getting worse?
Yeah.
That's kind of are we going backwards to those attitudes, more widely expressed and acceptable? That's what I find quite scary.
Mm. Absolutely.
Mm.
On a side note, when I did used to get horse riding lessons, I remember my teacher telling me I have no authority when it comes to horses.
Well, that probably extends into your personal life as well. And that's still the case. That's what I mean. It's just how to respectfully express your power and your boundaries. We all need them.
Yes. Anyway, I found that entertaining. I'm sure my horse did too. So,
Right. So yeah, that was the Guardian, right? So
yes.
like, we did find another story which we really wanted to follow up with, because it really does go to that point, is that, can't tar everyone with the same brush.
Yeah.
So this is ABC News,
Mm.
and it's called Beautiful Inspirational Moment. captured as police dance at a community event. So it's a video of police officers dancing at an African sporting event in Adelaide is being praised by community members as beautiful and inspirational. The footage shows two South Australian police officers, including Senior Community Constable George Fomber, joining in much to the delight of the crowd at South Australian African Nations Cup. AFCON. Oh, it's a soccer carnival. That's what it is. Okay, right, got it. Accompanied by a thumping bass, a driving rhythm, and some loud singing, the officers chimed and were cheered on by the gathering of people. This is so beautiful, inspirational, and we can learn a lot about everything in this video. African Communities Council South Australia, who shared the video, posted on Facebook. This is what AFCON is all about. Constable Fomba, who moved to Australia from Liberia in 2004, and joined SAPOL as a liaison officer in 2016. So the dancing was in no way premeditated, but something he was lured into. It was just fun for myself, and more importantly, fun to put smiles on the faces of the African community, the young people who were there, and anyone else who is watching it on social media. So I'm a community constable. It's a community constable. And one of the ways that we engage and bridge the gap in the African community is show a police presence and get involved in what is happening. The video prompted expressions of praise on social media, with one person commenting that it was so good to see community spirit is alive and well. Great work, officers, and another stating simply that you guys rock. The South Australia police officers have got some moves. Well done, another said. Community engagement has been a big focus for SAPOL. I don't know what SAPOL is. But anyway, Constable Fomba said many members of the African community and had also come to Australia from countries with histories of community antagonism, with police creating adverse perceptions in Australian settings. We have to change that around. And in order to change that around, we have to come into this role to change the understanding, to create that link, and also serve as role models so that young people can desire to be role models in our state, he said. Constable Fomba praised his dancing partner for his quick moves and said the whole spontaneous episode was a small gesture that could carry great weight. Bridging that gap between SAPOL and the African community is rewarding, and I'm happy, he said. I wouldn't have desired to do any job than this. So what does SAPOL mean?
It's South Australian Police.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, South Australian Police.
South Australian Police.
And I watched the video. It's so funny. It's almost like a dance-off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks really
It's so funny. It's like a dance-off with him and his colleague, who's a white police officer.
Who's a white police officer.
His name is obviously, it says from Liberia. So he's obviously African descent, but his colleague isn't, unless he's a white South African or something.
Yes.
But they're having a little dance-off in the circle. It's quite fun to watch.
It looks really good. And it just highlights that it doesn't actually take that much, right? To be involved and to feel, to make people.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 points there. It's about we want the police force to represent the community that they protect.
Yeah.
Right? Well, really, we want every leadership and power group to represent the community, really, ideally. If you're going to be idealistic about it, it's not what we have. But the, on the ground, serve and protect the community, everyone who's lives here, then you want that representation to be in the police. So yeah, I think but it's going to put people off. Minorities won't want to join the police. So they have that problem because they hear stories like what we just talked about, that it's racist. And even if they did, they probably wouldn't try, maybe thinking that they wouldn't even get in. So I think it's really important. And then like there is minorities that are racist as well. It's just beggars belief, but nice to hear stories about the other side.
Yes, the good police, and
and
they make the community. So
I've been part of the community.
Mm.
Such a beautiful story, I thought.
Absolutely.
Have you ever been? It reminds me, I was just thinking, oh, my dad would love this story. He, because he does all these, he's part of a Nigerian Friendship Society and all these African events, community events. He was really bigly, heavily involved in all that. So I went to a couple of things, but not many, because it's like it was just my dad to drag me to these things. I wanted to hang out with my friends and do my own thing. But yeah, I just love that community. Um, Always positive, always cheerful, always happy, always inclusive, just celebrating the culture. Uh, yeah, I don't know if there's anything here. I should go if there is, but this was about soccer. I'm not that fussed about soccer. Well, I did get invited, I did get offered some free tickets today to go and
Oh,
see uh, Everton and Celtic. Basically, two football teams, an Irish and English football team,
right.
like playing here. And I would have gone had I not had other plans, but just for the experience because it's fun. But I
Mm.
really am, otherwise I'm really not don't care enough about soccer
Yes.
personally. But yeah,
Mm.
that in a carnival. So I guess what would your takeaways be about those stories, Meenal?
Mm. Well, that I guess it's not all police, so I should be grateful for that, I guess. Mm.
Mm. Oh, is that it? Well, all right, mine are.
Some,
There is overt racism, misogynism
yeah.
in in a culture that thinks they can just have those views and express them freely and casually. There's a problem, needs fixing. And the problem is that that exists. The problem is there are people power, and the problem is they could do a lot of damage to the community. And then also they put the police in a bad light, the
Mm.
shadow over the police, and also they put anyone off who might want to join the police, who might have those ambitions. That's another point. And yeah, I mean, the community lose respect and they lose a sense of safety and trust.
Absolutely.
If you lose those things, and
It's hard to earn back. Yeah.
and oh, you know, and on that theme,
Yes.
we'll move on to what would you do?
Yes.
Are you ready?
Sure. Okay. Yes, let's do it.
Okay, so this is like in a workplace scenario. A lot of these are workplace, so maybe change it up and make them public scenarios. It could be. So let's just, all right, I'm going to change this. It's not going to be workplace. This is like you're out with friends, and one of your friends um, bumps into a friend they know, somebody that you don't know. Okay. So you're out with your friends, and they bump into. She sees a friend. She goes, "Hi," and so it comes over and she chats. And this friend is a black woman, and she's talking to her friend, who's a black woman. Blah blah blah. You're all stood there, you and your friends, and then she leaves and she says goodbye. And then one of your other friends with you says, "Wow, I'm really surprised how articulate she sounded," referring to the black woman.
Yes, absolutely.
She says she was really articulate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
No.
So whether that's a workplace comment, friends comment out, whatever, what would you do?
I think I genuinely, because it can be confusing, okay, if we're not taking the worst interpretation of what she meant. It would be like,
Okay.
what do you mean by that? Like, what
So
do
you'd be
you mean?
confused.
Yeah, I think I would probably be confused.
Right.
Um, like, especially in my group of friends, obviously, that because there's a lot of people of color, it would seem very unusual to say something along that line.
Mm.
Um, and I'd be like, do you mean just in her English. And if they said, yes, oh, she speaks English so well, you'd be like, well, I'm pretty sure she speaks several languages very well, you know? And that's what I think people forget about people of color, you know, or to be honest, Europeans as well who come in, they speak, you know, several languages. So it's, and if you've ever tried speaking another language, and obviously I've tried Hindi, and it's such a difficult thing to do. Like, I can't even read and write it. Just speaking it, you know, is difficult enough trying to articulate myself. So when you really think about, you know, people who have the skills to speak 3 or 4 languages and actually read and write in more than one language, you're just like, really? You're surprised that she's really that articulate? It's like, that sounds like crazy talk to me. So yeah, I think when you point that fact out, people kind of get it. Like, people, I mean, when they say, oh, she speaks English well, it seems like, oh, such a big deal. It's like, no, if she speaks English and she speaks French and German and, you know, like whatever else, then
I don't know. Yeah, again, it's a context dependent thing. I do hear, like, I work with a lot of international, you know, companies and colleagues and whatever. I'm always impressed with their English, even if it's not perfect English. They may be, in some circumstances, more conscious of that, and they might apologize for saying this or not knowing this or speaking more slowly because they may have to think about it, especially in business context when you use more corporate speak or whatever. It's not everyday casual conversation. And I just feel that I'm just impressed. And I always compliment them by saying, I think it's a compliment, that, well, your English is better than my Chinese, better than my Japanese, better than my Korean, because I don't speak any of those languages. So
absolutely.
I think I'm just always impressed in all people with other languages, always impressed. But then I guess in the context that I'm reading this one, it's an Australian, like, so it's an Australian, but you wouldn't know that in the context I just described. But it's somebody who is, and even if, I mean, maybe they were an immigrant when they were 10, 20, whatever. But then to say, oh, I guess it could be also,
If it's a positive thing, it could be good. Like you said, most people, and me included, are impressed by people who speak multiple languages. And so if you're saying, oh, she's really articulate, and I'm, you know, because she speaks, you know, and she speaks it really well, then absolutely.
yeah.
But
I guess in the context I'm talking about is in work where I'm talking to someone who is living in another country. Like,
yes.
I'm talking about a colleague who's in China, lives in China, and is communicating to me in English, or lives in Korea or Japan or whatever. They're talking about someone who is from that same country as them, or lived there at least most of the life, or a large part of the life. But I'll just talk about the other side of it. So the other side of it is, it might seem like a compliment, but it perpetuates a stereotype that Black people in this context or this situation aren't articulate or educated. So there must be a stereotype that you're not educated or articulate.
Right.
So I guess, yeah, it depends on the context. So that's why it sometimes sounds like a compliment, but it isn't.
Yes.
And I mean, I'm only getting this myself.
Well, that was like that joke that, you know, what is it, the Danish princess, the little one? Nothing against her, but how it like was in a big article, how she speaks like multiple languages, and like it was a big deal. But it's cute when it's a little, you know, white princess. But like most immigrant children speak multiple languages, but it's not a thing. Nobody says, "Oh my God, that's amazing." You know, like it was.
Yeah.
So I guess the
Yeah.
double standard, you know.
Yeah. It's impressive if it's, but it isn't, well, there's like, again, so many ways to look at it. It's impressive because so few non-migrants have that ability. Fewer. So it's like almost a surprise because, yeah.
But I think it's an exclusive, like a Australian thing or maybe a US thing or something, because most of the other countries speak multiple languages. Even in Europe, maybe,
Yeah, but not in
like,
England.
yeah, maybe not in England, but if you're Swedish or you're Dutch or whatever, we ourselves know our friends are that way and they speak multiple languages, so it's actually more of a I think there probably it would be interesting to know the stats, but probably is more common if you can speak multiple languages. So
Yeah. So it's not really, it's just us stupid
yeah,
people that can't speak, or just me speak for myself. I did learn Spanish, but
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I did learn French and Chinese, but I don't remember much about it at all. And now that I think about it, now as I'm older, I appreciate, that I should have put more effort into learning my language. I mean, I can
Languages.
understand it perfectly fine,
Mm.
my what would be my native, if I wasn't in Australia. But I didn't, when I was a kid, I didn't appreciate it. And I didn't, it came back to that whole, I wanted to be very Australian
Yeah, I know what
thing.
you mean. My dad tried to teach me some Nigerian
Oh,
language,
yeah.
but the thing is, like he didn't try and teach me till I was like, what, 13? It's a bit late. And it was because I was going to Nigeria to visit family.
Mm,
So he was teaching
yeah.
me some words, and that was fine. I learned some words like hello, thank you, and that kind of
Mm,
stuff. I guess it's me in my head, more practical. For me, I would want to learn a language that's more useful, as in I'm going to use it more. And that's why in our school, Spanish is one of the biggest languages in the world. Next, really, Mandarin and Cantonese would be because they've got the biggest population, but it's not as di spread as a
mm,
spoken language, say. But Spanish is huge. But because I guess French, I don't know why France is a neighbor. Most schools did French because France neighbor. But Spanish was offered in my school as exclusively do it. You didn't get a choice even. You either the year was split in two, and half the year did Spanish, half the year did French, and you didn't get to choose.
oh,
So I did
yeah.
Spanish. But I would have liked, I think the useful languages, because we live in it where we live, is Mandarin, Cantonese.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
the best language here. But if forget about the practicality of language and what's the best to learn, I would love to learn Italian. I love that language. It's my favorite language.
It is beautifully spoken, I
It's
must
so
say.
expressive. I love the language, like rhythmic, expressive, like I love it. I just love Italian. So that would
I,
be the
I
only
would love
language.
Korean.
You love
Korean.
Korean.
Well,
Why?
because the amount of Korean drama I watch, it would just make it easier. I have started to pick up like certain phrases and things. And now that I'm watching, like, world is turning to Korea,
Mm.
basically, for all of its entertainment needs. I have Korean friends that I've just not utilized all these years. I'm just
You
like,
could learn Korean.
I know I could totally learn Korean. I'm
Mm.
studying.
Yeah,
So,
you should. You should. Oh, but yeah, that's the other side of that. Compliment, the
yeah.
suggestion that they shouldn't be articulate or educated.
Mm,
I mean, yeah. Pete, I know in England, you hear that a lot. If anybody who's not born in England speaks English to them, that would be a compliment that people would say, "Oh, your English is really good." That would totally be a compliment. But when you think about it, a lot of countries are schooled in English because it's a big language in the world.
mm,
Uh, so yeah, I guess
mm,
that's part of it. But in the other context I'm looking at is specifically a black woman who's African American living and going
mm.
for a job interview and then hearing somebody saying, "Oh, I'm surprised how articulate she sounded," because there must be a stereotype that black people, African Americans aren't articulate or educated. So I think that's what that one's about. But it's worth thinking about as well when you think about that as a compliment. Interesting, isn't it? And one thing I didn't mention is we're talking about a microaggression. So microaggression is really an attitude expressed as a behavior that
Mm.
promotes a stereotype that may or may not be true. I don't know. So that's what a microaggression is. They call it microaggression because it's not overtly racist.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like small, and it might even seem harmless. Like, it's a compliment. So that's why it's a microaggression, and that's
Mm.
something you focus on when you're talking about diversity and inclusion in a work environment. Things that you may not consider offensive, things you may not consider
Mm.
insulting, things you may consider a compliment
Yeah.
can be a microaggression.
Mm.
Comments like that.
Oh, interesting.
Well, what advice would you give someone who just says, well, what you're supposed to do when you hear racist comments or like honestly, what would you do?
Yeah, asking why I think is important. What do you mean? Why did you say
Mm.
that?
But what if it's like overt racism?
Yeah, then it's just like, well, that's you're being racist, and
Mm,
I believe that's racist, and you need to stop.
mm. Would you say that?
I would say that that's racist.
Mm,
It would be difficult. I mean, I can't imagine this being at work, but if it was,
mm.
I would say
Yeah,
that it like that's racist, and I don't want to hear it, basically.
yeah. I guess it's
Uh,
all context dependent, right? Where you
hmm,
are, who said it, what the situation is,
yeah.
and whether it's an
I have
environment. Go on.
I have tried with family in the past.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's
You
another one in
know,
your family because your family's
yeah,
your family. It's just like, how do you address things that when people say things like
certain
that?
yeah, and
Yeah.
you try and explain it because you have to be, especially because they tend to be older than you, right? And so you have to be respectful.
Mm.
Um, but saying it in a way that it just they're just like, well, no, that's ridiculous. And so and they can dismiss you because you're younger, basically.
Yeah, but that's like an
And
ageism thing, isn't it?
yeah,
But yeah,
so
yeah. Yes, family, absolutely. I've had family say things that made me very, very uncomfortable, and I've not said anything. I'll be honest, because I remember one in particular because I was shocked.
mm.
Actually, I was just like speechless and hurt.
Oh,
It's
really?
experienced a strong emotion. Yeah, I was very hurt by it. So I didn't say anything that I should have
What
done.
what was it? I'm curious now.
You are curious, aren't you? It was a joke, and I was the
Um,
butt of the joke, and it was about not being able to see me in the dark.
oh yeah.
Okay, and that was from a family member, a white family member, because I have the privilege of both. I
Yeah.
have the complexities to navigate the two. But
Yeah.
yeah, really hurt and offended by that.
Yeah.
Um, so much that I didn't even know what to say because I
Yeah.
couldn't fathom. I wish I had said something now, maybe later though, not in the moment. In the moment, I was too caught up in these
Yes. And
feelings.
I think it's difficult when it's you know, like when they're talking about you, because the few times I've done it, it's when they're talking about other people, you know,
Mm,
another group of people. You know, you don't feel personally attacked, therefore you can formulate a
yeah,
response. You know,
yeah,
it's easier when you're not, you know. So yeah,
yeah.
but
Exactly. Well, yeah. When it's not as easy when it's personally directed at you. But this family member, I know they didn't mean anything by it. They thought they were being funny. They just thought it was a funny joke. I know that because I know them
yeah,
well enough. But I was just surprised and shocked that they didn't realize how offensive that is.
yeah,
Mm,
yeah.
yeah. Anyway, I think we need to wrap it up.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. Oh, but just one thing before we go. We had this amazing chat last week with our friend Steph, didn't
Mm.
we?
Yes, we did. It was a lot of
It was
people.
awesome. And I had to issue an apology because I realized once I'd read the interview that we did that when we were talking about them afterwards, that I started referring to them in she and her.
Mm.
So I added an apology. So I do apologize. It was reflexive, and we talked about doing that reflexively. So it just highlights the need to practice.
Yes.
Highlights the need to practice. And I've decided to practice with my written communication by making it gender neutral. As in, if I'm talking about someone, I don't say he, him, I'll just say they, them, because nobody notices. Nobody will notice that. Even if
Yeah.
they identify as he, him, she, her, generally people don't notice that. When you refer to
Mm.
other people, they did this, they did that, nobody notices. So it's an easy way to practice. That's just
Mm.
my take
Yeah.
on it. How to practice saying it.
Cool.
Use they, them more often.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, there we go. That's all. Gotta go now. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a lovely rest of your week, peeps. Happy hump day.
See ya.
See ya.
Mm.